All right, what's happening? Cryptosomniacs, welcome back. Happy 2019. What's happening, guys? We are here live, and the whole team is here. All right, Life Size Box, Chris Patton. What's going on? Amal? James?
What's up, man?
Sam? Snay? What's happening, guys? How you doing?
What's going on?
Good.
It's,
Right.
yeah, I think everyone's just anticipating when Bitcoin's actually going to move outside of this channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
We got time.
ping pong going on lately.
Yeah, I think we have time as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, mining profitability is super is super low. I just saw this thing that was 800 ant miners are for sale in Oregon.
We're mining Grin now anyway.
We're mining what?
Grin.
Grin?
Excuse me.
You don't know about Grin?
No.
The new
Enlighten us.
Bitcoin?
Is that the Wimble thing?
Yeah, Grin on Mimblewimble. There was Beam, and now there's Grin, but it's fully decentralized. It's all the people work as volunteers, and it's I think the creator's anonymous.
Yeah, I know what you're
And
talking about.
yeah, caused a big sensation lately. The price dumped massively once the mainnet released, but they've been working on it for a long time. It's because they were working as volunteers, so it took a really long time to get it going. But a lot of these, we got word from a lot of massive miners that they were planning on mining it. So
Why do they work as volunteers? I mean, blockchain is a perfect place to incentivize people based on how much work they do.
Right.
You know?
because they want it as like a Bitcoin, so like a fully decentralized kind of system. So
Okay.
I think it was created somewhat anonymously, and then they've had volunteers working on it for like 18 months or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. Someone was, I've been told about it lately.
That's
Wow.
interesting.
Haven't been following it though.
Yeah.
But I think it dumped 90 up to 98% upon release. I heard someone bought 1-for-1 Bitcoin, so 1-to-1. So there was a lot of OTC trading going on before it released, but there wasn't many in circulation. I think at one, it was quite slow. There just wasn't much going around, and people were trying to buy it up OTC. Then it released and dumped massively.
I mean, I feel like if you're releasing anything in a bear market like this, you're going to get crushed.
Yeah, you're pretty much asking to get dumped.
There wasn't an ICO or anything like that. It's just speculation on because it has it's like Bitcoin, but I think there's like an anonymous kind of integration like Monero. I think Mimblewimble's a bit more advanced on their encryption. How that
Yeah.
works?
More advanced than Monero.
Yeah,
it's like the next
Mimblewimble's
level.
pretty up there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about it to contradict that statement. That's just a bold statement. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. I definitely.
Yeah, I was reading about it, and it adds up. Technically, it makes sense if you read about it.
I heard it on a podcast. That's why. I mean, I don't have any technical expertise, to gauge that, but I heard it on, I think, Unchained. So that's the podcast with Laura Shin. So it always brings on like really good guests.
Yeah.
We already got questions coming in. Cody wants to know, what do we think about Tomo Chain? I don't know what POSB is, but he's asking about Tomo Chain. Opinions, guys?
So Tomo Chain. Okay. Honestly, people are raising a lot of money, and companies are literally poaching other companies and asking, "Hey, can you develop for us?" So until you see a mainnet or at least a testnet or any sort of development happen, I would be very wary. Tomo Chain is one of those companies which there's actually a pretty big developer base. I looked through everything that they have, and they're actually on their roadmap. So but again, in this bear market, everything gets crushed. But it's been holding up. I think it's still at 30 cents right now. I recently looked at it. I think it was yesterday. It was at 30 cents. I don't know what it is at now, but it's been holding up surprisingly well compared to all the other assets, right? All the other altcoins out there.
Yeah, I've heard good things. And a lot of the projects are kind of laying off expending cash until the market picks up. So they're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but not spending money on marketing and exchange listings and all of that.
It's smart.
So-
I mean, you'd be foolish to be spending a bunch of money on exchange listings right now to get your token listed so people could dump it. That's just talk about poor treasury management, right?
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, but there's other ways to get exchange listings cost effectively.
Right.
Like liquidity or like volume prerequisites, that kind of thing.
Yeah, on the contrary, like there's two projects that I heard of, and I'm not trying to shill, but again, I heard this on Lorishan's podcast, Unchained. ADA, which is Cardano, and then XLM, Stellar, they have actually had pretty, good treasury management. So you guys should probably look into those projects, and along with fundamentals and technicals. The fact that they haven't gone through layoffs or significant breaches of their treasury, that makes me kind of happy to know that they're handling their money well.
Right.
I do see Charles on stream a lot and like video. I don't know. I think one of the questions we have for tonight, skipping ahead, is like where we access a lot of information. I think Reddit is probably the biggest place for me where I look at crypto stuff, and I've seen a lot of Charles posting footage and stuff and updates on Shelly and all sorts of stuff related to Cardano, which is always good to see. Face part of a project and somebody speaking out about it. And he's obviously
And
that
for those
guy.
that don't know, Shelly is the staking consensus
When they
layer,
can, yeah, it's
Oh.
there.
So they've got the main net live, but really for what Cardano is, I don't even consider that a main net being live yet, because
Right now, it's essentially just, it's like a transfer of currency, A to B. There's no contract layer yet.
Right.
Let me ask you guys a quick question real quick. This is a little trivia piece that I thought was crazy when I first found out. How many transactions can you do for the fee of 1 Stellar? How many single transactions?
0, right? Because don't you have to have, well,
No, you have to use Stellar for as a transaction medium, right? Just like Ethereum and gas.
right, sorry, I'm thinking of it incorrectly. I was like, you have to have at least 25 Stellar in a wallet in order
That's
to...
just to activate the
yeah,
wallet.
yeah. Sorry, I was, like I said, I wasn't
On their-
thinking about it correctly.
on their validator nodes. But check this out. Check how incredibly efficient this is. 100,000 transactions per 1 Stellar.
Wow.
That's
Stellar's super
amazing.
cheap. So
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is insane, right? Just think about how fast it actually is, and it still transacts 3 to 5 seconds. I just thought it was Stellar's so amazing, right? Yeah,
Stellar's
it's a little centralized, but whatever, right?
Yeah.
better than Ripple.
I mean, look at Bitcoin.
Right.
If you can look at pools, they're basically centralized, right?
That's true.
Yeah. I actually had a question for you guys, in this whole debate of decentralization and centralization, right?
Mhm.
I mean, where do you draw the line where we become so hyper, addicted to the term decentralization, where we forget that, sometimes in life, or whether it's financial systems, when you're trying to go through revolutions, there's always a compromise or an incremental change.
Sure.
So do you think that we've hit that point in our space where we're becoming so ignorant of the fact that you can't just change the world like overnight, but rather that it's a gradual change?
I
Yo.
think
It's got to be a gradual change. I mean, obviously the whole world isn't switching to cryptocurrency overnight, et cetera. So it's very difficult to, this is something I've been battling with a lot lately, is justifying, my idealism for true decentralization with just the simple necessity that, like, most people don't want that. Honestly, they want to be able to, like, call mom, call
Yeah.
big brother when they have a problem. That most people, if you were like, all right, you have all your private keys and here they are, and if you lose them, everything's gone, they'd be like, ooh, well, I'm just gonna stick with the bank because that sounds dangerous.
Right.
Because people don't really like personal responsibility. So I think it's probably going to take generations before people are really, truly living the ethos of Satoshi's vision.
I think in general, and I'm going to say this and try to be as polite as possible. I have a lot of libertarian views, but libertarians in general are a little bit optimistic and fanatical about their point of view, and if you just look at some of these things, you know, like, hey, delete the federal prison system, delete the Fed in general, right?
I'm all for, well,
things like, these things aren't feasible. These things just aren't feasible, right?
True.
In a free society like we live right now, like it's to delete the Federal Reserve or anything like that is ridiculous, you know. And one thing that I was always I'm always interested about is, or recently really interested about, is the the Reserve Act of 1933. So what is that? It pretty much stopped all U.S. citizens to purchase gold.
Right.
So the government pretty much said, hey, if you own gold, you have to sell it to us for market price. And that's pretty much what they did to bolster their gold reserves. And now that was ridiculous, and that is very, very.
It's right up there with civil forfeiture.
Time. That was a time where the government had a lot of control, right? Yeah. And they needed it. You know, we had civil wars and things like that. But it just got me thinking. You know, if we do go that route and we classify gold and Bitcoin in the same route, I mean, what happens when Russia says, "Hey, we're going to put in $10 billion into Bitcoin"? Will that trigger like a space race? What will happen? You know, will people go crazy? Will and especially your question, Amal, about how am I supposed to explain this? Like, I think change is only begetted by something extreme. I don't think change ever happens very quickly, ever. You know, someone has to die. You know, pretty much.
Yeah.
Twin Towers, right?
Radical change. There has to be a war. There has to be some big crisis like a depression for change to actually happen very fast. Or most of the time, most politicians and most people will just sit on their thumbs until, you know, something catastrophic happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we've seen a bit of hyperinflation, but yeah, something more catastrophic worldwide will get us moving. But yeah, a lot of these projects, they have a degree of centralization. As long as they've got a good consensus mechanism that is fairly trustless to verify everything going on, that element of decentralization is generally enough. You can, and technically you can phone mum, as you said, Jason.
There's a book that I mentioned on stream a long time ago that was written by Andreas Antonopoulos called
Internet of Money?
I'm sorry, what is it?
Internet of Money?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's the Internet of Money. It's a part 1 and a part 2, and he chronicles the basically the beginning of money and dates it back to its earliest origins.
Wait, no, that's Sefedi Namus. That's the Bitcoin standard.
I'm not sure. This was definitely Andreas Antonopoulos' book.
Oh, okay. Sefedi Namus like digs into that quite a bit, but yeah, I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it was interesting. He says that money predates written language. He says some of the first drawings and scriptures on walls were that of ledgers, actually, and you know, an accounting system for money, essentially, and talks about over the generations of how we moved from that to exchanging goods and services, like for people, like you know, a doctor comes into your house and you feed them, to trading. Stones, to precious metals, to eventually dollars. And he cites one of the only real innovations the last couple hundred years were that of credit cards, and that there hasn't really been a lot. And I think to kind of reiterate some of the points, I mean, I think change is slow. I think we are seeing, without a doubt, just a lot of, in general, whether it goes for careers or money or education, a lot of stuff is virtual now. It's online. It's very accessible.
Sure.
And you're seeing that with the advent of things like Venmo, PayPal, and I guess recently just cryptocurrency. But I think to actually implement it in mass takes decades and maybe even generations.
Yeah, well, because you've got to, in addition to adoption of new technology, which sometimes does happen rather rapidly, but you've got to change the mindset, right? Because ultimately, it's a real paradigm shift to go from the current monetary system to decentralization as the standard. People just
It
aren't
really
really
is.
ready for
Like
it.
a
Most
shift
people don't
in-
even really
in-
understand what it means.
It's a shift in policy and government, how our government works, essentially. It's massive. It's basically, it says fuck government, is basically what what decentralization is.
Yes.
So,
And a free
but-
market is a good thing to a degree, but I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity for co-option in that. I mean, this is another thing I think, I hate to hammer on this point, but decentralization means the Nazis get a voice too, and I personally, I'm not really very excited about that. But you know what I mean? Like it means, and if enough of them band together, I mean, like look at what's happening in the United States right now, right? Now, I don't want to get too far into politics, but like there's a lot of things that I did not think were, I thought it was gone, and it's proven to be the opposite lately.
I'd rather have people be upfront about it so we could face those issues together rather than be closeted, right?
Yeah, fair point.
Jason, we were just talking about this. The human stream of consciousness, and if nothing was moderated, it would be exactly like 4chan. Where nothing is moderated, and what comes onto your mind is just put onto the web, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of racism, and there's a lot of sexism, and there's a lot of bigotry in general, and a lot of misunderstood thoughts on financial policies and what even crypto is, right? And people don't really understand what crypto is supposed to serve for. So I'm glad it's getting all out in the open, and people are actually addicted to social media and having a voice of the change. Like Trump is getting annihilated on social media, right? And the whole world is seeing this. So this is something kind of unprecedented, compared to previous generations where everyone has a voice and everyone is a reporter. Everyone is an eyewitness viewer, right? With a cell phone and a camera.
I was gonna say, think about that, man. I mean, I grew up before cell phones, and I've even seen the rise from Nokias and things like that up to now. It's ubiquitous. I mean, like everything has a super high quality camera on it. If you go out in public, you should have zero expectation of privacy at this point, unfortunately, right? So. That's also the case. I mean, should that also be the case with the internet? Because it sort of is, but I think that's what gives rise to projects like Monero, Horizon, all the anything ZK Snarks, all that stuff. I think that is what gives rise to that. Is people still want to have a modicum of privacy, but again, that might be something that future generations don't care about. I mean, when I was a kid, we did everything possible to keep photos of ourselves doing dumb shit off the internet, right? And now people are like, hey, look at, just out making bad decisions and broadcasting it to the world. So maybe future generations don't even have an expectation of privacy.
Yeah, well, I just used Uber for the first time.
What?
And
Welcome to the future, brother.
Yeah, but I had to give away so much privacy, so I had to put banking details on my phone, and they want to know my location, and then all these things. It's just like, what have I done? But it's the convenience, and it's more cost effective. So people just kept saying, do it. And then suddenly I had Uber Eats come up, and I'm like, all right, I'll order that. I just ordered all this food. I'm like, shit, what's going on? What have I done?
A question I'd like to ask also that kind of appends your question, Amal, is not centralization versus decentralization, but how can we use blockchain technology in general to improve just existing technology, and how fast can that happen, and in what mediums really? Aside from currency here, what can we use the technology for?
That's a really good question. I mean, like going back to your example of Andreas Antonopoulos with Internet and Money, and what I was talking about, Saifuddin, blockchain has only started to open up the doors for currency, as you said, and who knows what it's going to get into the future. But what it's really started to help us understand is that, the current financial system, and especially the way we've been, moving money across the world, is flawed or inefficient, in modern day. And we have a better system now that's available, which is Bitcoin. I think it's the best system in terms of currency.
Sure.
But what other things could be built off blockchain? It's really up to, how creative people are.
So I was just told something about Swift. Did you hear about Swift? And they did an international transaction in 6 seconds.
No.
So
Wasn't Swift working with Ripple?
I'm not sure the details, but apparently they can do what we all want them to do. Basically, I guess there's been delays, and they hold the money. There's interest, but when they're forced to do it, basically, if there's other guys coming in, crypto solutions that are going to make it faster and disintermediate them, they can do it. They've just not been doing it, basically. So they did a successful test on it.
I think I did hear something about that, a relationship with Ripple and something that I thought about. I've mentioned before on streams and stuff is that I think Ripple, could be one of those things that serves as a bridge gap towards things like decentralization. Like you asked a question, like where do you draw the line? And I think that I know a lot of people dislike Ripple, but I've actually thought of it as perhaps an in-between between
Sure.
fiat and Bitcoin, for example. So
I think the big difference that we have right now is the idea of tokenization and blockchain, right? Because, like for example, if I'm in industry,
let's token.
Or if I'm in enterprise, right? I don't need a token, and I don't need my entire business plan out for the world to see. Like if I'm Apple, I don't need to tell people my production line, my production statistics, how many people died making the iPhone. Nobody needs to know that, right? And companies,
wouldn't that help the market decide better? I mean, that's the whole point of the blockchain.
It doesn't. They don't care about the market. Companies don't care about the market.
Right. Companies don't care.
Even in pharma, everything is NDA and non-compete and completely closed off. You can't even sign out a SOP of like the file organization system without like a lot of training. You can't even do anything without a lot of training and a lot of forms signed and saying, hey, you're not going to disclose any information, or you're not going to whistleblow or anything like that. Well, I guess there's no law against whistleblowing, but it's very frowned upon, and they try to keep it in-house as much as they can, right? They try to settle everything in-house as much as they can. So I don't know if we're talking about blockchain being used in the real world, which it is already. IBM is using it, in supply chain, and very, very slowly this adoption is happening. But all these little tokens, I feel like tokens are better for the user economy. Like your Ubers, like your Airbnbs, like almost anything, right? Where companies don't really need to exist per se, but more of a user influence and user compensated basis. Like your SIA, like your file storage, right? Like a lot of these other things. Or tokens can be used like a gift card, right?
I mean, that's effectively what they really are.
That's what utility tokens are right now, right? But there's other methods like, hey, you do work on the SIA network and you get tokens. And those tokens are liquid, right? So there's tokenization is helpful, but I don't think in all business use cases. And I think I'm definitely a fan of blockchains over tokens.
Yeah, so some companies are using a blockchain implementation just to track their transactions, just for accountability to prevent corruption and mistakes. So basically API their transactions into a chain. But you can use like a big chain DB, which is all end-to-end solution, and it's not a blockchain per se. You don't need a token per se.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
About big chain DB, the open source.
And I'm just thinking, like when supers or anything in like a big production pipeline, they have to sign off on everything, right? Like, hey, I received this, I received that. This was changed here. And what I've seen, and I'm not going to name any companies, but what I've seen is if you make a mistake, you could erase your signature and then rewrite your signature and be like, oh, and this is the correct date that I saw it on, right? So it's kind of messed up, and blockchain could really, really help protect companies as well.
Yeah.
Just like you said, you know, it holds accountability.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, so far we've clearly seen that, you know, Bitcoin has sort of evoked this revolution in people, especially around the world, with economies that really need it, right? Like Zimbabwe and Venezuela, and potentially Italy and France and Netherlands, where we're seeing these yellow vests, you know, protests. And so currency is going to be a big thing going forward. But even if Bitcoin doesn't make it, something that we've kind of learned about currency is that, you know, something that Sefadine talks about is there's two kinds of money, right? There's hard money, and then there's easy money. Hard money is the kind of money that is difficult to increase its supply. Okay, now clearly that's not fiat, because we pump money out the ass in America and all around the world, right? Everyone's just printing money like they fucking own a printer in their house, right? But then beyond that, he talks about, you know, money being saleable. Salability has like 3 factors. I think he talks about like it being, you know, scalable down to, you know, smaller fractions or increased to larger fractions. And then it should be moved easily across space, meaning it's easy to carry, right? From person to person, going from country to country. You don't need 10,000 gold bricks with you to, you know, show people your wealth. And then the third and final thing is it being able to retain its value through time. All of which, you know, fail miserably when it comes to fiat. But Bitcoin is the only thing, even though it's not even an official currency, it still retains all 3 of those. Yeah, it's very volatile for now, but in the future, it has the ability to do that. That's the point.
Yeah. And
Sorry.
Maybe this is a longer game than we thought, right? Maybe this is
a longer game than we thought.
Yeah, maybe this is a 25-year-old game that we're talking about, you know. And it's not like, hey, 2020 we're going to the moon, everyone's getting Lambos. Now maybe by 80 years old, you know, I'll have a Lambo that I can't drive.
Hopefully it'll.
Yeah, who knows what's next after blockchain? Yeah, it could be a decentralized version of what is it, hash graph, or, you know, who knows how it's going to evolve. Someone was talking about the Finny phone that the co-founder of Siren Labs tried to buy a bunch of Grin OTC, and he got scammed.
Oh God!
I read
an
article
about it. So
producing that phone, they cut it off. Like the Siren Labs, they were going to put that out, and then they decided, this isn't going to be profitable because, frankly, manufacturing hardware is probably a very difficult game. And then they opted to try to lease out the technology, and at that point, you're just a wallet. So,
dude, and that's what I didn't understand about Pundi X. I was like, why is there so much hype around Pundi X? Hardware is never the right answer.
Yeah,
it's never the easiest solution. It's never, what is it called when it's like the shortest solution?
Path of least resistance.
Path of least resistance. Thank you. It is not the path of least resistance. Just buying hardware in general is I feel like it's unobtainable, right? Yeah, like if you want to be successful and have a successful app, you're not going to start up your own OS system or build out your own phone. What you're going to do is you're going to launch an app on iOS and Android, right? That's it. Just Apple and Google. That's it.
Yep.
You're not even going to worry about Windows phones. I don't know anyone who has a Windows.
So, yeah, I completely agree with the hardware problem, but there are target markets for them. And yeah, we're doing some exciting stuff in the Philippines, and basically we have bank and remittance partners. So with the banks, we can have an app, but also a card distributed from the banks, which everyone understands cards. Only a third of the Filipinos are banked as well, and most of them have smartphones. So they can get these cards and then use these. So if you roll out this hardware through the Philippines, say, anyone trying to come in after that is going to have much more difficulty getting adoption because they're already using the system, it works. Plus, with these banks, the security bank that's rolling out throughout the Philippines, and they can distribute cards. So you can use them on these, like a Pundi X machine or something like that. So all well and good. If I send money to family in the Philippines, if they've got a card, they can use it with a provider through an app if they've got that system worked out, or through the hardware, which they understand more than doing it fully through an app.
That actually makes a fair amount of sense, and this was something Sneh and I were discussing the other day. There's like a huge portion of the Filipino population that goes abroad to work and then basically sends all of their money back to the Philippines.
Yeah, last year it was $30 billion US went back from Filipinos abroad.
Yeah.
So I heard sorry.
What is it? More than half of nurses in the world are Filipino.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm from the Bay Area, and they're like all the nurses are Filipino.
It's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know that. And then Indians are more than a third of all doctors.
Yeah.
That's not surprising, but that's not surprising, but yeah.
I mean, money flows across the world to all these, second or third world countries, right? Like money's flowing back from first world countries back there.
Sure.
But, even then, there's so much of a problem and a lag in time and space when money's heading back to people.
And it's getting chipped away at every stop along the way.
Yeah,
so
like what's the percentage of money?
Is,
So you send 100%. You send 100% of that money back. What percent makes it back?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, there's a really good paper written by Delphi Digital. You guys should check it out. But they actually did a study on different countries sending money across the world, right? So for example, if you were to send money from Kenya to Tanzania, which is literally like countries next door to each other, they take anywhere between 7 to 19% of the dollar value.
Pay me to drive it across.
And here's the crazy thing: they're fucking next door to each other, and it still takes 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's not even like it's like Kenya to China.
Right on the float. I mean, that's the whole thing. If you understand the banking system, like they're saying, like, yeah, we'll move your money, but we just want to hold it here and get the interest for a small chunk of time, and then that goes to our bottom line. Also, we're going to charge you a fee on it. Then we'll go ahead and move it over. So, I mean, that's the entire business model of a bank is to just, we'll make
they're middlemen.
Secure, but we need our piece on everything.
Yeah.
But you also have to make sure that you're complying with all the different government regulations and making sure you're going through all these checklists and things like that. So the banks do have a hard time because honestly, their technology is outdated.
Right?
Well, apparently not. If Swift is the banking infrastructure. So if they can make the transactions that quickly, what kind of how does that bode for Ripple?
Listen, if you test it, if you tested it yesterday, it's coming out in 5 years. That's pretty much how everything works.
Yeah.
People want
if there's a successful test, it's coming out in 5 years.
People want cash for cash. So there's Western Union, but their fee, they have to account for the volatility of the forex. So they got to increase their fee accordingly because they give you the money straight away. They still got a 24-hour clearing process or whatever it might be. So they've got to account for any volatility in the market.
Yeah.
And as Bitcoin gets more down the line, there's going to be taxes when importing through different countries. Absolutely, Bitcoin taxes. And there's going to be registry services that, hey, you transferred it to an account and they redeemed it on their exchange in a foreign country. I think there has to be.
Why don't they just build it into the protocol?
I thought this was crazy.
This is what the second layer solutions can do.
Yeah.
This is what people, in my opinion, should be building instead of deciding to be like, oh, we're gonna make another fork off of somewhere else. Like they need to start. We have 10,000. What? No, I'm kidding. I'm over exaggerating. But we seriously have like 2,000 some odd different cryptocurrencies. Most of them are shit coins. If those developers were actually working on second layer solutions and hopefully maybe even third layer solutions for Bitcoin, this wouldn't be an issue because all this stuff could just be built in.
There's no developers. That's the
problem. I was going to say that. I think there are no developers associated.
There's no developers.
90% of those coins. They're literally.
That's fair.
I could fork Litecoin right now and create Litecoin Cash right now.
It already exists.
Right now.
It already exists. I've met the people.
The 10,000 number you said is more correct, but a lot of them are just pump and dumps and just were made.
That's actually true. There probably is 10,000 cryptocurrencies. I know you said that there aren't because CoinMarketCap probably.
I was going off the
They only have like 2,000, but there's a ton more.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are like
almost infinite. We created our own before, Sneh. We created one off Komodo's chain.
Yeah, we created one. We created a CryptoSomniac coin on Komodo's chain.
Yeah, it's not.
There you go.
It's not
Are
worth
you
it.
developing anything?
No, we're not developing
No
anything.
development on that
Just wanted to
shit
show
coin.
how easy it was, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like we did it in 2 hours. We're just like, okay,
Not even.
billion supply. There you go. We're done.
That's insane, man.
We just had to come
my
up
friend-
with the symbol, I think, for it, and
The ticker, right? That's
Yeah,
it.
ticker.
Just need
There's
a ticker,
few
you need a
clicks.
ticker and a dream. That's it.
They have boot camps all the time. My friend had one over here, and you had like 30 people creating their own crypto in an hour. You know, there's 30 more. There's boot camps like that all the time.
But yeah, back to I guess the main point. There are really no developers, and I think it would be cool to see the tech evolve as we get more developers. I think because I think that's you have the money in the space, and I think the tech's lagging behind the actual price, and that's why the price is being devalued right now, is because the tech isn't there, and you need developer. You need someone to build cool shit, basically, with all that money that we have, and
Yeah.
there's a lack of them. There's just a lack of people that are familiar with some of the languages required to code.
Yeah.
But
Like
not even the
recently,
language is the mathematics that it takes, you know, to create a consensus mechanism, or, you know, forking a coin, it's going to be easy, right? Anyone could do that. But to have a new consensus mechanism, like I saw this thing on Reddit called BOMB, B-O-M-B. Anybody see that article? I thought it was
Saw
really
the title. I didn't read it.
So the token's called BOMB, and every transaction, 1% of that transaction gets destroyed.
wow.
Right, and I thought that was really cool. So these developers actually built something out, and they did it for fun, you know. But they created this whole new system that pretty much destroys supply gradually.
It's like definitely anti-inflationary by nature. Then that's actually kind of
Right, right. I thought it was really cool, right? But things like that, they're
it
going to
eventually
be much harder
self-destruct
than
then?
forking, right? Than forking Litecoin, or even, you know, remember that coin? What was that shit coin? Vertcoin.
Yeah.
Remember they're like GPU based Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So like things like that, like those could be done in a drop of a hat, right? Like, hey, let me just swap this hashing algorithm out that I found on GitHub, right? Let me just replace this folder.
Very
But
few
things like
innovations.
Burn and things like that. I mean, that's really cool. Like there's cool things happening, but still to this day, you know, there's not many blockchain developers out there at all.
True. Any
Yeah,
code
we're
solidity?
growing more.
Yeah.
We're trying to get something through the university here, and like Stanford, I think, have some decent programs, and they're coming, and there's always new consensus mechanisms coming out, so they're evolving the Byzantine fault tolerance and things like that. So
I think that's what all the money last year has if anything, the best thing I think last year brought, or 2017 really, was just attention to the space. And now there probably are more developers. Like if I could, you know, count how many developers there are in the blockchain space now compared to when Bitcoin was like $1,000, it's got to be a lot more, right? We have a lot more attention.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that it's garnered a lot more attention in the space, especially if you're someone who is invested into Bitcoin or blockchain or cryptocurrency of any format before it really gained attention, because it sort of validated, I think, some of our opinions and views towards what it can do. Some people are going, wow, it can do a lot. And most consumers are just wanting to make money, and obviously there's not money to be made, so they've left, or at least there's not money to be made right now. But yeah, I think the technology or the attention's there now, and it'll slowly grow. And things like universities teaching it, courses online, it will take time for people to learn that stuff. But
I can tell you, like, as far as online courses, man, I was working with a client, and they wanted a course built, so I just was looking at researching who's out there building it. There's actually a ton of people that are savvy enough that are trying to build. I mean, even Tim Draper's got, like, Draper University. That's a whole, you know, I mean, it's a private university, but it's still specifically dedicated to training, you know, blockchain developers and entrepreneurs. I think ultimately what it comes down to is we need to see some actual results that are operative. We need to see some actual things get built that do gain adoption, so that people take it seriously. Because right now, to your point, Sam, I do agree that 2017 brought a lot of attention and made a lot more people aware of it. But ultimately, my feeling on 2017 is it left a really bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, because it got super hyped up, and a lot of fools were parted with their money because they bought into the hype without knowing anything about what the technology actually does, and they're burned on it now. So it's going to take, and this is actually a question I wanted to ask you guys. In my opinion, it's going to take at least 5 years for those people to be like, okay, and that's assuming some positive shit happens in this market. I think it's going to take at least 5 years for those people to be like, oh, that's still around, that's still happening, and oh, there are legitimate things happening with it. Because most people are just like, blockchain, fuck that, I'm over it. I lost my ass. It was all hype and it's bullshit. Because they didn't really bother to look into what the technology actually is, and they're just going to be sour about it. So that's my opinion on it. What about you guys? What do you think how long before those kind of people either forget, or we get a new influx of people that are excited, that actually are looking into the technology and actually are, understanding what it is and what it can be, and trying to push that vision forward?
Blockchain stock has been rising, crypto prices are down, but there's heaps more jobs going. There's still projects coming out, and a lot of private companies are implementing blockchain. I can't really name them live, but
right.
There's some big ones that we're dealing with, and it's quite amazing. They just want like little blockchain solutions, like they're doing, say phase 1, where they put some of their transactions on the chain, and there's a mechanism to verify them, and there's the accountability and stopping corruption, and then they'll expand out into next phases, particularly if phase 1 is successful. So a lot of these tech companies that do tech development have a blockchain arm now, and they've been training people in blockchain implementation. So that's risen.
Yeah, even if it's so I guess I can name one off the top of my head, which is IBM, right? In terms of a blockchain company, or a company that's using blockchain.
Hyperledger.
But then aside from that, there's so many other organizations or even governments that are starting to use blockchain that are just not on our radar. Because I think, to answer your question, Jason, is that what crypto did for us in 2017 was bring us this greed of skyrocketing prices.
Sure.
And that's the only thing that we care about and remember about blockchain and crypto. Nothing else in terms of development or what it's doing to reshape the world matters to the greedy mind. Right? So if you look in Senegal, they actually voted on the blockchain. If you look at Boston Consulting Group or Deloitte, they're starting to actually, study it and build things off it. MIT is actually starting to improve the Bitcoin blockchain, right? So there's all these different things happening around the world, but the average person couldn't give a shit, because all they could think of is, oh, fuck, well, I lost like 70 or 80% of my money. And that's cemented in their mind,
right.
Right.
Yeah, it's massive.
That's what I'm saying. And to the point, they don't care. Right? This is what I know. This is just my anecdotal evidence, but when we do videos that are like in-depth project reviews and talking about the tech, or talking like interviews with project leads and stuff, they get shit views. Nobody cares. When we do technical analysis videos where we're like, oh, this is, obviously that's part of what we do, but when we do the technical analysis videos, people are like rabid for it, because all they care about is the money. Nobody cares about the tech. It's a bummer, man. It's a bummer.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, a lot of people are just giving up. So it's easy to make money in a bull run. You just put your money in and let it ride up. And it's the same now with services. Like there was a lot of ICO advisors back then that they'd go on the team, get paid big money, and they were basically just throwing money at stuff, and the price was rising, so no one really cared. But then when the market hit, they were doing the same old thing. A lot of them just couldn't survive, because you need to totally rearrange what you're doing to make it successful. Your go-to-market approach, how you're going to market, how you're going to monetize. Maybe you have to revise your token economics and structure, and people just didn't get it, and they didn't survive those times. A lot of them are falling out of the space.
I think the biggest thing is, I think this was a question I asked Charles Hoskinson when I interviewed him, and something to the effect of what causes, what's the best thing you can have an environment for cryptocurrency, or something to that effect, was the question. And really it just comes down to usage and users. That's how you build, or that's how you're gonna have something. You need users and usage. So
Yeah, like network effects.
yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know when that time, it was 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, 6 months, whatever, but we need users using some of the stuff. And I think to James' point, I think there are a lot of companies out there that do have an arm or an R&D department in blockchain, and can see its are aware that it's useful, but not fully sure how and where they can use it.
Yeah.
A lot of companies out there, I think, that are researching that at the moment.
Sure, that's. I love what Amal was saying. Of like hearing that, what you said, Zimbabwe, I think, actually
Senegal.
voted on the blockchain. Senegal, that is phenomenal. Think about
Yeah.
that. Think about like if you could actually, so again, not to get too far into politics, but I don't really like the way the government spends a lot of the money they raise in taxes, or misappropriates it and just hides it. I'm not really a big fan of that. If I could, I'm happy paying my taxes because, you got to do it. I'd be a lot happier if I was like, all right, you can take this 33% of my money or whatever, but I want it to go schools, infrastructure, roads, and just say, okay, sure, take it, but this is what I want for the country, and so you can have it, but that's where it goes. And we wouldn't have all this shenanigans bullshit with like the voting chads. I mean, it seems like every time we have a major election in the United States, there's always some tomfoolery going on with voter fraud, essentially.
Yeah,
and
I totally agree.
if that could be completely eliminated via the blockchain, I mean, it could, right?
Yeah, effectively, definitely, yeah.
I think it would be a really cool use case, but sort of to counter your point there, I don't know that it would be safest to just have everybody say, this is what I want to spend my tax money on. I think it could be used for voting, but like, I don't trust myself to say this is where I want to put my tax money, because I'm going to put it all in one place that I care about and not appropriate it for the masses. So I'm glad
isn't that the whole point? I mean, that is literally what Bitcoin is supposed to be. So we can really see what matters to everybody at that point.
That's true.
We
That's
can
a really
really
great
see
point.
instead of like we sort of maybe elected some people and then they're just going to do whatever the fuck they want anyway. Pardon my French. I'm swearing a lot today. Sorry. But they're just going to do whatever they want anyway, and they're going to say this, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I think that truly would let us know, what do people really want, and what does matter to us as citizens. I'm for
that's
it, man.
true. It's like, that's like a utopia, where you have like
it
the
could
perfect.
be a total dystopia, right? I mean,
It sounds like something Brock Pierce would design.
yeah.
Listen, let's focus on what works. Okay, so what works right now?
Bitcoin
Short
works
answer is
great.
Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, Bitcoin works.
And if you think about Bitcoin and you want people to use it in a daily form, then we have to better the retail experience. We have to better entire experiences in general. And right now, it's an hour long to do anything, right?
Minimum 30 minutes.
Right. Well, I mean, you could confirm in a block, but still, that's still 5 to 10 minutes, right? If you even have just one single block confirmation.
Yeah.
So the way people are getting around that now is like what Coinbase Commerce is doing, is they're taking custody of your Bitcoin, and then they're debiting your Bitcoin out of the account, and they're trading pretty much.
How is that any different than the bank, though? Like, tell me. That's no different than the bank.
It's absolutely not. So therefore, Bitcoin and blockchain are not usable, right?
Well, they should be.
Unless they're stores of value, unless you're going to use them like gold, or unless you're going to use them like investment pieces, yeah, it's fine. But
use it to buy a house
I would have liked to
or a
see
car.
Bitcoin transform into a more, household name. But I don't think that's happening anytime soon without custody solution.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or maybe we should just, maybe they should start looking to things like, I mean, Nano's super fast, Stellar's super fast. There's a lot of things that is table stakes for the game. Like you have to be fast. So does the paradigm shift?
Right,
Stellar's
but here's the
non-custodial. It's a little
thing.
more centralized, but it's still like, if you own your private keys, you own your money.
But here's the thing, okay? When you're talking about a customer and merchant process, you have to not only satisfy the customer, but also the merchant, right? If the customer goes in and says, hey, like, you gave me this fake broken product, they're going to want their money back. So they're now you have to design a system where now the merchant gets penalized as well, right? So there's a lot of different things that you have to do. Because credit cards, I use credit cards because they're safe.
They have
They
this
are
now. I mean,
remarkably safe. Like, if I get ripped off, I'm charging back, right? I'm charging back my credit card, unlike cash.
There's projects that are building this. I mean, SageWise, I interviewed Amy Wan, the CEO. She's literally, that's what SageWise is they're building a contract resolution. So it is sort of like, to Silky Smooth's point, it is sort of like the Lightning Network, where you are effectively like locking some things up in escrow. But if you've got a funded account, you lock up a portion of it in escrow as products get delivered, or whatever it is, as the thing happens, then it works. But if not, there's an actual dispute resolution mechanism. That's what it is. So maybe that's just what needs to get built into it. I mean, smart contracts aren't really very smart. They need to make them smarter, because really all it is just if then else. This could all be written into the code. I mean, I would assume, I'm not a programmer, but I would assume with enough development time and enough smart minds working on it, this shit is a non-issue.
There was a cool project we reviewed, Snay, called UTrust a while ago. It lacked a lot of features, but it had something to what Jason just said. It had what is it called? Some sort of resolution dispute team, basically part of their company that would take into account transactions. It was kind of like a crypto PayPal, but and had, like PayPal, a ability to dispute, and people reviewed the transactions, but it really wasn't anything.
And I feel like there's just so many complexities, though, right?
Sure.
I mean, if I wanted to spend Bitcoin and I spent Bitcoin on a product and I was like, oh shit, it's fake, and I go back to the merchant, what price of Bitcoin do I get back? Do I get my whole Bitcoin back, or do I get the cash price that I paid for it at? Because what if Bitcoin doubled in value the next day? Like, what is the whole process there? Who has the right? Who has the jurisdiction? And what it comes down to is consumers or merchants should not have any rights whatsoever. It should become down to a third party, unfortunately, a third party middleman who makes the rules and say, hey, if you want to play by these rules, you could use our system.
Something that I think is hard to say, like, do you get your money back at this price or this price? Amal mentioned volatility of crypto and Bitcoin is just massive right now. But if we fast forward 80 years or whatever it is, and whatever cryptocurrency is at the top, the volatility is surely not going to be as large. It'll be more in line with, say, the US dollar or something, if that even exists at that time. But
right.
I mean,
assuming adoption happens, the volatility should naturally evolve out of the system, right? At a certain point, a Bitcoin's worth a Bitcoin, and then this shit is not an issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the dream.
That is a dream. That's like the ultimate goal. I mean, unfortunately, we're stuck in this middle ground of being able to compare, one Bitcoin to, fiat, right? And that's where things get really messy for us, because we're not able to like properly gauge that. Wait a second, my Bitcoin, like, for example, I mean, if you think about the Venezuelans who, put their money in Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. That was somewhere around pretty much the top, right? The Venezuelan economy was crashing like somewhere in the middle of 2017, early 2017. So, 5, 10,000, 20,000 even. And now you can see that, holy shit, like we've dropped, 80, 90% down. So what about those people, right? Like they were hoping for Bitcoin to be a less volatile asset, and now it's
less
taken away
than their native currency, though.
Yeah, it is, but does that make
it? They took less of a beating by buying some Bitcoin and taking the beating that the rest of us took than they would have taken by continuing to leave their,
totally.
Venezuelan
But
shekels.
I guess See, if I was in that position, I would much rather have US dollar.
Sure.
I mean, it's the reserve currency of the fucking world. Like, I can use US dollar literally anywhere in the world. Can I use Bitcoin anywhere in the world? So Bitcoin is more so a better store of value and a very shit medium exchange for now.
For now.
That is really the end game, though, Mal, like you said, and the Internet of Money. I think maybe it was just a podcast from Andreas Antonopoulos. I can't quite remember, but when we stopped thinking about how much a burger costs and say $5, and we start thinking about, without even thinking about it, how much that is either in Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency. That is when we've gained adoption, when you no longer have to think, how much is a Bitcoin worth? We no longer ask that question.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
The
so
question disappears.
we're involved in rolling out a stablecoin tied to the country's currency, and basically you can also transact that with like USDT and stuff like that. So that actually becomes a forex market on stablecoins. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's the future. Countries are going to have stablecoins tied to their currency, and there'll be exchange between, you know, their currency's volatile. Maybe they'll go into I'd like to say a fully audited US stablecoin. Wherever it may be, it should be fully audited.
You mean like Tether?
That's why
attestation.
Yeah. Let's we'll stick with true USD for now, I guess. But
Yeah, I don't want to change the subject, but I want to talk about this before we forget. VanEck ETF, they pretty much quit. They're like, hey, we don't want to deal with the SEC
Oh
or
yeah.
any of the regulatory boards. Any thoughts on that? They quit yesterday, I think.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't really use the word quit though. Like, they basically pulled their ETF because I know that they knew that they had a fairly low chance of getting it accepted. And so pulling it now means that, okay, well, they don't have to worry about it getting rejected, and they could just start working on, you know, their next proposal.
Yep.
I think
And it doesn't
for the most part, I mean, majority of these people already know that there's no fucking way that the SEC would give you the green light in a market full of manipulation and people who are essentially like creating scam projects. Like, why would that ever happen?
True.
I think it's
you're right.
a time thing.
What'd you say, James?
Yeah, Mole's completely right. That's just how it is. Yeah, they got to revise and come back. They got to prove the market's less manipulable, and you just can't do it right now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, soon enough. But it's not that big a deal. It's everyone thinks it's going to be this great catalyst, ETFs. We've got other derivative products, and you know, things are evolving. You don't need to worry about that ETF. Everyone talks about that one ETF.
Well, we have derivative products, but nothing that will create the exposure as an ETF would.
Yeah, but it's all coming.
Why do people want derivative products? The whole
They're great.
The whole point of this, the whole point of cryptocurrency is to hold your money. If you're buying derivative products of it, you're not holding the asset. Thus, they can ultimately that eliminates the entire $21 million limit, because they're just going to manufacture as many fucking derivative products on top of it as they want and play the same shell game that the banks have been playing for years. I totally disagree with that stuff.
You can't stop it though. You can never stop. You can never stop margin traders. You can never stop future contracts. You can't stop any of that.
Fully agree. A derivative, the word derivative is basically a fancy word for gambling.
Right.
That's all it is.
Gambling.
You cannot stop someone from gambling on, you know, a product or a service. That you just can't. You know,
Fair.
They're going to speculate, you know, the price of Bitcoin to 100,000 or to fucking zero. You know, it's one way or another. That's the way I see it.
Right.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it will evolve into something quite toxic in the long run.
Yeah.
But you know, Jason, you're right, but you can't stop it, and ultimately, it solves that adoption issue. It's just much easier for traditional investors to get exposure to that underlying asset without having to go through all the difficulties.
To me, it just opens up more opportunity for manipulation. Now they can slap the price up and down and just rob the public more than they already do.
I mean, that's a really good point, but like, I guess what I would counter is, I think that bigger institutions, if they have, skin in the game, right? If they start putting the retirement money, other people's 401ks, all kinds of money that's under their accounts into crypto as a diversified asset class, why would they want to allow Wall Street to manipulate prices up and down? Because their money's in it too, right? Like they can't go back to their customers and be like, all right, well, we're down 45% on your portfolio. Like, no, the customer's just going to pull out all their fucking money then.
Ask Novogratz how that's working out.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have a hedge fund. He has a crypto fund, right? Sure. Like when you're hedging against crypto, I mean, you're going to make sure that you're not losing your clients' money, and you're basically investing in an asset class that's not easily, been able to manipulate. That's really it.
I forgot to do a shout out to Manny Pacquiao if he's watching.
The fuck? Boys with Pacquiao now?
Oh, did he win?
Yeah, he did.
That fight was like 5 years ago, right?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, he's 40 and he beat the 29-year-old Adrian Broner. It was cool.
No way.
Broner is no joke. Not to
Boxing is boring. It's so technical. No one gets knocked out. Everyone just, pillow fighting up there.
Gotta watch the heavyweights, man.
Put me in there.
It's amazing though, because imagine a sportsman in America that the whole country gets behind whenever they do anything. It's just ridiculous. The camaraderie over there is amazing. It's so cool to watch. So he'll just start swinging and they'll all start cheering. He's not even hitting Adrian and they're all yelling and getting excited. It's amazing, really.
Oh, he's a massive celebrity in the Philippines. He's like a national hero.
He's a congressman.
Yeah, that's right. And he's a pop star. He's a terrible singer and they still love him.
And he's involved in crypto.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So is that fucking idiot Mayweather. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's true.
He's kind of out.
Him and DJ Khaled.
That was
my name over your currency.
That was more, take this money and let me use your name, basically.
Yeah, seriously.
Or they're doing like John McAfee. That's why John's running from the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
No, he openly admitted that he hasn't paid taxes in 8 years.
Well, that too, I guess. That's even more
like,
important.
Come get me, though.
He's on felony IRS charges.
He's never coming back to the United States.
Yeah, seriously.
But I'll still vote for him.
That'd be ridiculous if he gets voted and then he comes back and it's crazy.
Well, he can
If I vote for McAfee,
elected, right?
But if you vote for McAfee, I heard you get a free coffee at McDonald's.
He'll give you his McAfee bucks. Did you guys see that shit? That was a while back now. It might be that's
McAfee
cool
bucks.
News, but yeah, you can it's like he's got some sort of crypto, but he's actually issuing it as a paper currency, and you can redeem it for what? I don't know. Time.
You know what doesn't make much sense to me is Adobe still markets McAfee antivirus. I'm like, you got to rebrand that. Yeah. No one's gonna buy that.
Yeah, especially at this point.
You remember when that used to come on your computer like pre-installed?
Yeah.
Windows had a licensing agreement with him. He's rich as hell, man. McAfee's no joke when it comes to richness, but a joke when it comes to life.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that has just gone on to become a caricature of himself, right? I feel like it happens in Hollywood all the time. Like Jean-Claude Van Damme's a really good example. He was like the man back, in the 80s or 90s or however, it was ages ago. But he was like the man, and then he just stuck around for too long that like all of a sudden he's doing the Splits commercials, and then he's got that like JCVD show. And I feel like that just happens eventually. Like if you're rich enough and famous enough, eventually you just become a caricature of yourself.
What's that Batman quote? Like, there's a Batman quote that says, if you're a hero long enough, you get to see yourself become the villain or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Sam, what is it?
Gosh.
Oh wow.
Google.
Sam is my Batman authority, but I guess
let's go, Vince. Steven Seagal is another great example of that shit.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
Right. There you go. You either die. Yeah, and John McAfee just won't die, I guess.
He can't die. The dude lives in
Bill
mountains of
Cosby.
cocaine, and he's still like, he's old, man. Like, how has he not
He's
had a heart
old,
attack?
shoots guns. It's all the blockchain keeping him alive.
Kind of reminds me of like Bill Cosby as well.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think just Jerry Seinfeld did it, right? The #1 show, and they just said, "That's it, we're out of here."
Yeah.
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 Go after
He's
the
got
champ,
his
man.
head on straight.
John Elway, George St. Pierre, and Jerry Seinfeld.
I mean, look at Jay Leno. Jay Leno was the man, and now he's doing car shows.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
he's just
those
doing
are-
car shows now.
Well, that guy's always been a super car.
This
dude.
is totally random. I don't know anybody watches basketball, but the other day I realized Vince Carter still plays basketball.
Really?
That's
I
crazy.
watched
Yeah.
this kid when I played. Was like a little kid, and I was like, "How's this dude still in the NBA?"
Wait, is he still on the Raptors?
I don't know what team.
No,
he
no, no.
plays.
I thought he was on the Grizzlies last.
According to Google, he plays for
He's a backup though. He doesn't start, right?
I don't know. I just thought it was crazy. He's still in the NBA,
Yeah.
regardless,
Nuts.
regardless of whether he starts or not. I just couldn't believe it.
Anyways, we're coming up to an hour, and we're talking about NBA now.
Dude, we're actually at an hour and a half. I think YouTube must have dropped some frames because I'm looking at the XSplit here, and we're at 127.16 right now. So.
Well, we didn't start for a good 10, 15 minutes.
Oh,
I
that's
think.
true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We were.
All right.
Fair
Well,
enough.
closing thoughts, guys.
I'm not selling my Bitcoin. I'm not selling my Bitcoin. I still have the most Bitcoin I've ever had, even in this down market. So.
But you're not buying any Bitcoin either.
I'm waiting. I still think. Okay, ready for it. I still think 1,200. So that's when I will buy more Bitcoin.
I don't think that's possible. I don't think
we've been
1,200
arguing
is
about
possible.
this literally all week.
Yeah.
But I say 1,200. So that's my. I could be wrong, and I'd love to be proven wrong, but we'll see. But that's where all my orders are sitting right now. Last year I just kept putting money into Coinbase, and I would trade a little bit here and there, but I just kept putting fiat in, and I just have a bunch of orders sitting there. So if it goes, either I'm really smart, or maybe the rug gets pulled out from under me. But that's what I say.
Yeah. What about you guys?
I'd say the bottom's probably, if it were to go to 25.
Wow. You think the bottom's 25?
I don't necessarily think the bottom. That would be the lowest that I think it would possibly go. Is there's like a lot of there's some support near that $2,500 mark. At 1,200 doesn't seem 1,200, $1,000. That was like before it had this. If you followed or were in Bitcoin for a while, that was kind of just like it slowly went up from like 500, 600, 700, 800, 900 at a very like more organic pace, and to drop down to 1,000 or 1,200 is almost like back to the dinosaur age. But
Yeah, I just think
Not really,
that
but-
like if the institutional money is coming in, they still don't want to pay. They don't want to pay 2K. They don't want to pay 3K, or they would have, right? How long? They didn't want to pay 6K. They don't want to pay more than 1,000.
I think some
And
things
they
that
have
to
the
do with it-
ability to beat it down. So why wouldn't they?
Beyond price, I mean, price shouldn't be your entry point because you could buy fractions of a Bitcoin. So I think they're waiting for things like regulation and tech development.
True.
just
True. I don't
the
disagree
price.
with that.
And it's a little bit of like a Mexican standoff because, like,
It's a
if
little
one
bit like
person
the
pulls,
government shutdown.
right, if one person pulls the trigger, everyone's going to start pulling the trigger. So if somebody says, "Hey, we're injecting $2 billion into the crypto market," then everyone's going to start being like, "Oh shit, let's jump into this." I think it's going to be like a mini space race.
We got Consensus New York coming up. Isn't that
Yeah,
meant
in
to
May.
start?
I think it's going to be 6,000. I think it's going to be above 6,000 by June, or May 22nd, or whatever that date is.
The happening.
Yeah, whatever the
I'm
consensus
talking about
is
this
on,
year.
This
I think it's
year?
going to be over 6,000 by May.
It's a bold
whatever the
prediction.
consensus is on the bottom, just add a little bit because people will front run that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fair point, James. That's. I mean, if you really believe in the tech, you believe in the tech. So I guess you could dollar cost average in on the way. I'm just being greedy.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, well, why not?
Cool
right.
stuff, guys. I don't think we have any other questions. So, we had a lot of questions. All right. Okay. I guess we'll just close it out anyways.
You know, it's. You want to ask some more questions, guys? Come find us in the Moon Lounge. We all hang out there pretty regularly. If you want to join, the info is right up there at the top. Come on in and see us in the Moon Lounge. You can join the free Discord server.
Hit the thumbs up button too.
And say what, Sam?
Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't.
If you are happy with if you're happy with this kind of content, smash that thumbs up. Give us a like. Don't forget to hit the little bell so that you get all of the notifications when we do go live. Hopefully the shadow ban isn't still not telling people when we go live. And you'll see more of us there. But yeah, if you want to chat more about it, we will be hanging out over in the Moon Lounge, and we'd love to have you in there. Again, you can join the Discord server for free up there, and if you want to get into the full group, there is the web address up there. So with that, this has been fun, guys. Always fun to have a healthy discussion.
Come join us in the shenanigans.
Yeah,
Got a competition coming this weekend too. So.
Yeah, James, talk about it. Give it a little prep.
Yeah, so I did an interview with Coin Analyst. They're like a sentiment analysis program, kind of like a blockchain terminal, a new fancy one. So we're doing we've got about 1,000 US of tokens to give away for every member. So we're going to do a competition, basically some hard questions, and we'll work out who's going to win what. So I'll post all that up there. And then just for the Moon Lounge members, they're going to get access to the platform, early access to the full platform, which is quite a heavy subscription amount to actually purchase. So pre-access before it's actually released. So we're going to do a giveaway for 5 people. So there'll be another separate competition for that. So 2 competitions. So if you want access to the full platform, you'll have to be a Moon Lounge member, but we'll have tokens for everybody. So Moon Lounge members can enter both competitions.
And if you guys haven't seen the video, check in the history. James did an awesome interview. What was that, like 2 weeks ago? It was fantastic. Super well produced, great information. So check it out. Totally worth your time.
All right, thanks.
And with that, cheers. Keep your stop losses tight, guys. We are out of here. And
Peace.
Later.